Ay, ay, la, 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 ay, la, la, ay, la, 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 ay, la, 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 ay, la, la, ay, la, 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 ay, la, la, ho, ay, la, la, la. Ay la la ay la 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 ay la 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 ay la 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 ay gam ki yelech legeit al mavet. You can keep singing. Lo 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 yirara gam ki yelech begeit al mavet. Lo 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 yirara lo 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 yirara ay la la ay la 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 ay la 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 ay la la la. That was Gam Ki Elech V'Geit Samavet. Even if I walk in the valley of death, lo lo irara, I won't fear, won't be scared, because I don't see if anybody's watching here yet. This is my here somebody just shut up. This is my favorite. When if you weren't here, Yima, nobody would be here and nobody would be online, and that's the best, because then I know I'm really giving the class just to give the class, not because somebody's here, not because somebody's watching, and not for any other reason, just giving the class. Because, most people at this point would have given up. Nobody shows up to my class. Nobody's watching online. What am I doing this for? I mean, how crazy can a person be? But I made a commitment already back when the lockdowns were happening. I'm giving the class no matter what. And it is good for me because I get to learn things. So, okay, first of all, Shalom Aleichem to Katie and Zahava who joined us, and maybe Yael, L'chaim, everyone. Baruch atah Adonai Melech haolam she'achon v'ro. To my mother who's sitting here, and to Shena Bat Sheva that watches later, and to Avital, and a refuah shlema to Ephraim ben Rus, and everybody needs a refuah, and everybody that needs to be calm in these strange times. So my mother and I, we went out for dinner last night. The whole restaurant was filled with people. There were people waiting in line. Gan Saker was filled with people. Everywhere people are out living their lives, and that's how it should be. And that's when Rabbi Nachman has his famous lesson, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tzar ma'od. The whole world is a narrow bridge. V'ha ikar lo lehit pached klal. And he said the main thing is not, and he put it in the reflexive, not to freak yourself out. Which restaurant? Cafe Gan Sipur in Gan Saker. I'm lazy, I don't want to go anywhere. But it's an excellent restaurant, it's really excellent. So Rabbi Nachman says, Lo lehit pached klal. Don't freak yourself out. And it means to do it to yourself. People like to sing, when they sing the song, they say, Lo lefached klal, not to be scared. But you have to be scared. If somebody's threatening you, you have to be scared. But to freak out, that you can control. It's natural to be scared. And of course, FDR at the beginning of World War II in America, when Pearl Harbor was attacked, he got on the radio and he said, the only thing that we have to fear is fear itself, which in a sense is the same thing, which is a very smart thing to say. I'm saying this because I was in touch with a person today who was very, very stressed out by what's going on, and it's understandable why somebody would be stressed out. But if you think about it objectively, we will have a warning before there's an attack. There are safe places. There are bomb shelters all over the place. And in the meantime, nothing's happening. So until something happens, nothing's happening. And so for now, this time right now, it's our job to have emunah, to have faith, and simcha, and joy. And that is the work of a chassid. Emunah and simcha. And it's all throughout life, not just when there's a crazy situation like what's going on right now. That is the avoda, that is the work that we have to do our whole lives, and basically we're going to go up to the world to come, and Hashem is going to say, so how did it go when I tested you in that world? Did you have faith? Were you happy? If you're going to say, no, I was stressed and anxious and freaked out all the time, so Hashem's going to say, well, the whole point was for you to be calm and have faith, and not just to be calm, but to be actually happy. And that's really hard to do. Like, that's objectively hard to do because it goes against human nature. Okay, so we're learning from Torah Samech Bet. A funny thing happened this morning. Mechavuta Shav Fuash Lema Aon Ben Chanaliba. Why are we learning this lesson? Because I learned it with him, and we learned it in Oteh Or with all the commentary. This morning he takes out a copy of Likutey Moharan. He says, today we're going to learn Samech Bet. We're going to learn the lesson that we've been learning for weeks now. And I said, we already learned it together. And he said, nope, we didn't. And I said, yeah, you know how I know? Because I'm teaching it in my class. And I'm teaching my class because we just finished learning it together. Well, we're going to learn it again. And so we started this morning, and he starts asking me questions. What does this mean? What does that mean? So we learned it. I learned it for this class, so I know the lesson quite well. So I'm explaining it to him. He says, oh, that's really good. How do you know that? So this is a recent thing with him. I'm going to have to get used to it.
Yeah, that he doesn't remember.
Yeah, it's what can I say? I grew up with a lot of old people. So either in the temple or in the old age homes that I volunteered in, and just being in South Florida in general with a lot of old people. So it doesn't bother me, but it's just got to get used to it. Okay, so what we've been learning, the idea behind this lesson at this point is he brings the statement that eating in Kedusha in a holy way can bring about the unification of Yichud Kucha Brichu Ushchinte. So that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His Shechina. And this is a concept that we come across all the time, regularly in Likutey Moharan. Hashem can't be fully revealed in this world because it would lose our free will. There'd be no reason for us to exist. So what Hashem does is He hides Himself. And the example that I give in this room is that up here there's a light bulb, and down here on the table there's light. And we can see the light, but we can't see the source of the light. Even if we look at the light, we can't really see the source of the light. And if it was the sun, for example, we can't look at the sun for very long. So how do we unify the light down here and the light above? He says we unify it by eating food in a kosher way. And then he says, but in order for you to have that unification, first you have to elevate and clarify the food. And how do you do that? You do that through emunah. You do that through faith. And that's what a lot of the lesson is about. I don't know at what point we'll get back to where we started. But it's a lesson that talks a lot about faith. And one of the things he mentions is you have to know da ma shetashiv la'apikos. You have to know what to answer a heretic. So there's two types of heretics. There's the heretic that comes from outside and the heretic that comes from inside. And the example, since I should mention, next week I'm not giving a class because either we're going to be having a big feast with Mashiach, or we're going to be fasting and just finishing the fast when the class starts, and I'm not up to giving a lesson after a fast. It takes me like a day at least to recover from a fast. The first 2 hours after eating, I'm literally just laying on the floor, just waiting for my body to recover. All right, so next week no class, unless there's Mashiach, and still no class because we'll be dancing on the Temple Mount with Mashiach. So he says, know how to answer the apikoros, the heretic. And so somebody can say to you, for example, why would you fast on Tisha B'Av? And I mentioned that we had a Shabbos guest once that said that she doesn't fast on Tisha B'Av for this reason. Because if you're fasting because the temple was destroyed and the Jewish people were exiled, the Jewish people have been brought back to the land of Israel. And if we wanted to, we could certainly build a temple on the Temple Mount. We just decided that we don't want to yet. For religious reasons, for political reasons, for whatever reasons. So why are you fasting? There's no reason to fast. And I'll tell you, when it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Tisha B'Av, that thought really comes to mind. Or even a better one, when the fast is delayed because of Shabbos. That happened last year. So Tisha B'Av was on Shabbos. We had the fast on Sunday, but it wasn't the real fast. It was a fast that we remember that it was on Shabbos. So it's torture. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5, 6 o'clock is torture. And you're thinking, do I really need to do this? Do I really need to cause myself this suffering? After all, the Temple Mount is in our hands, and look at the light rail, and look at Cafe Gan Sipur, and look at all the things we have here. Do we really need to be, harming ourselves by fasting and crying and being bitter over the destruction of the temple? And so you could ask yourself that question. And if you don't have an answer, you're probably just going to start eating, because you'll say, hey, that's a good thing. So the answer is that we're crying over the destruction of the temple. The temple hasn't been rebuilt yet, and Mashiach hasn't come yet. Obviously, people are talking about this crazy war that could happen. If we were in the times that we wouldn't be fasting, we wouldn't be talking about these things. The lamb would lie with the sheep, like the United Nations. That's their quote on the United Nations from Isaiah, that the lamb will lie with the sheep, and that swords will be plowed into, or will be hammered into plowshares. Right, the swords will be used for making food, but we're not there. So that's the answer. So you have to know how to answer somebody else that asks you a question, and you have to know how to answer yourself when you ask these questions to yourself. And he says that's what it means to know how to answer a heretic. And then he says we have to serve Hashem with the 2 parts of our heart. So we know that our heart is divided into 2 parts. I don't know how many, I think there's 4 parts of the heart physically. I don't know. I don't remember. But in spiritual terms, there's the right side, which is the good inclination, the left side, which is the bad inclination. And we have this phrase, I don't remember where it's from, Yamin Mekarevet, and Small Docha. The right hand pulls inwards, and the left hand pushes away. So it's this movement here. And this is the movement that I learned from my wife, who learns everything about raising kids. This is how you raise kids. You have to have, on the one hand, the hand that brings the kids close. On the other hand, the hand that pushes back. Because any parent that says, my kids will get whatever they want. They want to smoke, they can smoke. They don't want to brush their teeth, they don't have to brush their teeth. They want chocolate, they can get all the chocolate they want. That is a terrible parent. A parent that doesn't discipline their child is a bad parent, but a parent that disciplines their child too much is a bad parent. So it has to be this balance between the 2. And so in the same way, we have to have our evil inclination serving the good inclination from the 2 ventricles in our heart. And what does that mean? So the evil inclination can get angry. Because where does anger come from? Anger comes from us not remembering that Hashem is running the world. That's really where it comes from. Or if we want to put it in more philosophical terms, when a person is disappointed with the results, oftentimes they get angry. Or if they're shocked. Somebody hits you on the street, it throws, I was once, this was many years ago, working for my father in Miami Beach, and it was raining, and I was standing crossing the street in the rain, and all of a sudden I started tasting really sweet rain. There was a guy, I think he might have done it on purpose, because I had a kippah at the time in Tzitziot. He took a cup of Coke and threw it in my face. But it was really raining, so I'm so innocent, Really, sometimes I think, I don't know what's wrong with me. I was like, this rain is really tasty. And then I see the cup on the floor. I'm like, what? Somebody just threw a cup of Coke at me? So I was hoping it was a mistake. I have no idea. So if something like that happens, it's a natural response to get angry. But normally anger comes from, I expected to get a certain thing, I expected to get a certain result, and it didn't happen, and now I'm angry. And so the Baal Shem Tov teaches that when you're tested, you lose your da'at. So we have chokhmah, bina, and da'at. Chokhmah are facts, bina is using one fact to understand another fact, and da'at is the knowledge that Hashem is running the world. So we lose our da'at, we lose our ability to know that Hashem is running the world for that moment. And so we get angry. And that's where anger comes from. Now imagine the power of anger, that rage that comes, using that for serving Hashem for good. And that's what he's talking about. He says, how do we tap into that negative energy and turn it around and use it for a positive thing? And when we do that, we serve Hashem with the two parts of our heart, the good side and the bad side, with the bad side serving the good. So that's the intention of it. The anger, the passion, for example, the desire to cheat or steal. So I think I don't have this anymore, but I here every 2 months I have to pay VAT. And I charge the VAT. The way it works in this country is independent workers like me are basically government employees. I collect taxes for the government and I give over to the government. So I have to charge 17% VAT, which is going up to 18% in January. Yep, because of the war. They need more money. And I get like an extra few thousand shekels every month when I do work, and then I have to give it over to the government. But they have a great deal. Anything that's an expense for your business, you get to take the VAT off of that expense from the VAT that you owe them. So I collect receipts from whatever I can because I don't really have a lot of expenses in my type of business, to offshoot it. So I'll get a reduction of, maybe 20, 30%. But many times I don't have enough money to pay the VAT because I needed it for other things. So I'm like, so I'll cheat a little bit. I'll change the numbers. They never checked me. In 25 years of doing this, they never checked me. I've never cheated. But that temptation is there. And the reason that I don't cheat is because I really believe that Hashem is running the world. So if I'm cheating, I think that I'm running the world. And then I take away Hashem's ability to do miracles for me. Like somebody wants to send me a donation for the podcast and just, there you go. Or who knows what. All kinds of crazy things have happened. But the moment that I start cheating on my taxes because I think that it'll save me money is the moment that I cut off the connection for Hashem to send me His own abundance and shefa. But that feeling of wanting to cheat, that like passion of wanting to cheat at that moment, if I could use that same passion and that energy for serving Hashem, then I'm serving Hashem with the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara together. So that's the meaning of it. So he says, we have this debate amongst the rabbis in the Gemara. And there are always rabbis in the Gemara whose opinion wasn't taken. So there would be a question, can you do this particular thing on Shabbos? And the rabbis would have a debate. This is what the Talmud is all about. This is what the Mishnah and the Gemara, which makes up the Talmud, this is what it's about. The Mishnah states, here are the laws. The Gemara states, what does this mean? And the Gemara is the debate between the rabbis. This rabbi says this rabbi says this. This rabbi says, but this we learn from this. And why do people learn Talmud at all? It's in order to understand the reason behind the law, so that when you have a question for yourself or somebody else asks you a question, you know how to answer because you understand the reason behind it. So the rabbis would debate with one another, and that is a debate for the sake of heaven, l'shem shamayim. And that's a machloket shebekdusha. That's the language that he's using here. A debate, a holy debate. But the second that somebody is hurt or offends another person, or that person feels like the other rabbi should have agreed with me and they didn't agree with me, all of a sudden, from being holy, it becomes evil. Because his ego comes in and anger comes in, and something that was holy can quickly be turned the other direction. So Rabbi Nachman says the tikkun, the fixing, and the whole goal of what we're learning at this point is to bring together the right side and the left side of the heart, the good and the evil inclinations in the heart. And he says, "V'tikun hamachloket shebekdusha." How do we fix this argument that was done in a holy way for the sake of heaven, but could have gone in the wrong direction because of the egos of the rabbis that were arguing? Heim halachot psukot. How do you fix it? By reading halachic judgments. Ki psak halacha hu השלום וההכרעה של המחלוקת התנאים והאמוראים במשנה ובגמרא. Because when a final decision was given on what is the halacha, this is the peace, and this is the verdict that was given in the debate between the rabbis in the Mishnah and the Gemara. So in the sense, when you're learning just straightforward halacha that says you wash your hands by doing it this way or that way, you tie your tzitziot like this, you light Shabbos candles like this, you use these things for lighting Shabbos candles like this is what it says in the Shulchan Aruch. It literally just says line after line after line, this is how you do this and this is how you do this. You're basically reading peace, because those statements are the final conclusion that the rabbis came to in the Talmud, meaning all of that tension between them that they were fighting with one another, it finally concluded with this halacha. So by reading halachot, you're basically reading the conclusion, the peaceful conclusion between the fighting rabbis. So I think it's a brilliant thing, because who would ever think that just learning straightforward halacha is basically experiencing peace? So he's kind of saying, in a sense, you're going to eat these halachot, you're going to absorb them, you're going to take them in, and by taking them in, you're going to take in the peace that was created between the rabbis that were fighting in a holy way, and that could have gone the wrong way, but it went the right way when they made a final decision. So that's what he says. How do you fix this argument? You fix it by reading the decisions. ועניין זה מבטל את המחלוקת. And when you read the halachot, when you read the judgments, the decisions, then this nullifies the argument between the rabbis. ועל ידי לימוד הפוסקים, לימוד שולחן ערוך, and by learning the verdicts, meaning learning straightforward Jewish halacha, Jewish law, hu nitkasher leshalom shebekdusha. Then you're connecting yourself to the peace that's in the holiness of the argument. Umeteken hamachloket shebekdusha. And you fix any evil that could have come out of the disagreement of the rabbis. Va'az nitpatel hamachlakot ha-machlakot hayetzer hara shebelibo. And then, when you read the final decisions between the rabbis that were arguing with one another, meaning the halacha, meaning the shalom, the peace, then you nullify the disagreement of the yetzer hara, the evil inclination that's in your heart. So in our heart we have a fight, a battle going on. Should I do this? Should I not do this? Now it's not all the time, but sometimes it's there. So I don't have a problem shoplifting, but somebody who likes to shoplift, it's a temptation. Somebody likes to drink, it's a temptation. Somebody likes to gamble, whatever it is, it's a temptation. So I'm taking shoplifting because it's just the first thing that came off the top of my head.
But you don't like to shoplift.
No, I said I'm not a shoplifter, but I've known shoplifters.
Yeah, me too.
And when I have seen somebody who shoplifts, I'll say, where'd you get that from? You don't have money to afford that. And the person will say, oh, I just took it. Yeah, it's amazing. Just take it. Take. So what I want to talk about is that moment that the person is deciding to take something, there's a real debate between the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, the good and bad. If the person is normal, doesn't, not like a kleptomaniac or something. A normal person that just fell into a rut of stealing things because it's so easy to do. You bend down, you drop your wallet on the floor on purpose, you bend down, stick the candy bar in your sock, and stand up and pay for what you're going to pay for. And at that moment, you have a battle between the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, and he says, how do you fix that? By learning straightforward halacha. Va'az yuchal avod Hashem b'chol levavo. And then a person can serve Hashem with their full heart. And it says, levavo b'shnei yitzarim, with the two inclinations that are in your heart. V'niftechu lo sharei hasechen. And then the paths to a person's intellect, to their understanding, will be opened up. Ki ein hayetzer hara mastir al shvilei sichlo ad sheyodea la'ashiv la'apikos. Because The evil inclination will not hide the paths to a person's intellect as long as they know how to answer the heretic. So what he means is that at the time that a person is going to steal, they say, I don't want to steal. And then that's like the Yetzer Tov, is saying, I don't want to steal. And the Yetzer Hara is saying, yeah, but it's right there and I really want it and it's so easy. And he says, until you know how to answer that evil inclination says, yeah, but it's right there and I want it and it's so easy, then you're not going to be able to make the right choice. But the moment that you tell yourself, yeah, but I'll be stealing, besides stealing, taking money from this store, I'm also doing a transgression. And I'm even disconnecting myself from Hashem. That's the answer that you have to give yourself why you shouldn't steal. I know in the shuk, anytime somebody gives me money by mistake, I'll give them 50 shekels, they'll give me 100 back. It happens as, quick transactions. Somebody gave them 200 shekels the second before, and they thought that they had to give me back half of what they gave, and they give me 100 shekels. So I'll tell them it's 50 shekels. And they'll say, oh, thank you, and they'll switch it. Now I could just take the money, but that's the same problem. It's coming from the same place. The evil inclination is saying, why don't you take the money? The person's giving you the money. It's money. You need the money. Don't you want the money? And the Yetzer Tov is saying, it's not my money. It's his money. If Hashem wants to give me money, I have a million ways for Hashem to give me money. I don't have to steal from somebody else. But that answer you have to have. You need to know how to answer yourself in order for yourself to do the right thing. And how do we build on ourselves, make ourselves stronger in a sense, to answer the evil inclination when it comes and asks us to do something that we shouldn't be doing? It's through the decisions and the peace that came about through learning straightforward halacha. Because basically what you're doing is eating intellectually kosher food. You're reading the decisions, the verdicts of the rabbis that already reached a place of peace. And he says, this will affect you from the inside out. A couple of Shabbos ago, we went away for a family bar mitzvah, and I led a few parts of the davening, and there were some people that came over and they said, wow, the davening was really special. And this one woman said to me, you have a very special voice. And I never heard a voice like that. Now, I don't have a great voice. I'm not a chazan. I have an okay voice. I can sing. But there's people, the big voices, like the cantor that I grew up with in the temple that my mother goes to. He has a great voice. There's no question. There's people with great voices. So I said it's not that I have a great voice. It's a lot of work of learning Likutey Moharan. It's a lot of these lessons, and actually applying them, it comes out through the davening, and that's what you're hearing. It's not the voice. And also the food. People that eat my food on Shabbos, they say, oh, the food is so good, the food is amazing. So the food is good, but there's much better food than my food. But the food is good because you're eating spirituality. And when you hear the davening, you're receiving spirituality. And that's exactly what he's talking about here. He's talking about that the physical can be turned into spiritual. We know that with tzedakah, you take money that could be used for anything, and you give it over for a spiritual purpose. And you also subjugate the Yetzer Hara, because the Yetzer Hara says, why are you going to give that money away? So this morning here, so I was supposed to get paid today. The payment didn't come in. The payment will come in tomorrow. So I literally have no money in my pocket, no coins, nothing. And this morning, I have a set amount that I give every morning. And I had exactly that and 1 shekel. So I gave the tzedakah that I normally give. And then I had 1 shekel left. And this guy who comes around every day, this Haredi guy who comes around every day, makes me crazy. Because I don't want to give to him. I don't even want to give to him 1 shekel. But I spoke with my neighbor. My neighbor is a very special, righteous person. Neighbor in the shul. Like he sits at the same table as me. And his father is a Rebbe in Meir Shalim. And he's from a long line of big tzaddikim. The guy's a tzaddik himself. So I said, I don't want to give him a shekel. He said, 1 shekel. You could afford 1 shekel, give him 1 shekel. Don't worry about it. Hashem will give you the shekel back. So from that point on, I decided, okay, I'm giving the guy a shekel every day. Now today was literally my last shekel. I'm not worried because I have a credit card and I have money coming in and everything will be fine. But I said to myself, am I going to give this guy my last shekel? Literally my last shekel? And I gave it to him. Not only that, he didn't come to me and ask for it like he normally does. So I called him over and said, come and take my shekel. So this is the test. Like, who cares about a shekel? It's so little money. The test was all internal. The test is all with the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov. So the reason for me it was actually I got a lot more out of it because giving that last shekel was like, Hashem, you should know I'm putting my faith completely in you. Okay, according to nature, I should get paid tomorrow. But right now, I have nothing. And I'm just trusting Hashem that everything will work out one way or another because it always does. I mean, if ever I doubt myself, I look back at the weddings, which was total insanity. Crazy amount of money, and I didn't even understand how all the money came and all the money was paid. And the second the wedding was over, we're right back to where we were before. So the no-go was like the avalanche stopped, the gates of heaven closed, and that was it. So it's there. Okay. V'zeh otiyot shalom. These are the letters of shalom. Not rikon. We have like another 10 minutes. I'll tell a story and then we're done. You're doing great, Ima. Right. The acrostic of Veda ma she tashiv la'apiko. So those are the letters Daled, Mem, Shin, Lamed, which make up the letters Shalom in a different order. Da, know what to answer. The heretic. So he says, what is Shalom? What is peace? It's knowing how to answer the evil inclination that comes inside of your head and says, don't do that and don't do this. Ki al yedei shalom, because through peace, shemitrabe mikoach limud poskim, which increases through learning straightforward halacha, yodei lashiv al apikosut shebalibo. It will help a person to know how to answer the heretic that's in their heart. I talked a lot about what it means, the heretic in your heart. Wazeh nirmaz b'pasuk, and this is hinted at in the verse because this is how Rabbi Nachman likes to build his lessons. He wants to give a text proof from Tehillim. Odecha b'yosher levav be'lamdi mishpatei tzidkecha. This is a verse from Tehillim. I will praise you with a straight, like a standing up heart, and it says levav, the two parts of my heart, and I will learn your righteous laws. Meaning, I'm going to learn halacha. So why does it say levav instead of lev? The two parts of your heart instead of one, daika specifically. Shelo amar b'yosher lev. It didn't say a straight heart. Ela levav, beit levavot. But it says two parts of your heart. Dahainu b'shnei yitzarim. That is with the two inclinations. Ki gam yetzer hara naaseh kisei lekedusha tachat yetzer atov, because also the evil inclination is going to be a footstool, a holy footstool under the feet of the good inclination. So in a sense, what he's saying is that the yetzer hara is going to be supporting the yetzer atov. The yetzer hara, really, the only thing that comes out of the yetzer hara is obviously bad things, temptations, doing stupid things, doing outright transgressions. But there is a passion and a fire that's there that isn't in the Yetzer Tov. In a sense, the Yetzer Tov is the goody two-shoes, and the Yetzer Hara is the one that wants to blow everything up and do everything wrong. So one is doing the right thing, the other one is full of passion. So how do we take the passion and redirect it for good? So that's what we're trying to do. ואם אתה זוכה לעבוד את השם בלב שלם בלי מחלוקת יצר הרע, and when does a person merit to serve Hashem with a full heart, without the disagreement that comes about from the evil inclination? Kad lamdi bizman shani lomed, in the time that I'm learning mishpatei tzidkecha, your holy laws, your righteous laws. Hainu al yedei limud poskim. That is when I learn straightforward halacha. I take the Shulchan Aruch, I open it up, and the first thing it says is, I think it says the first thing is when you wake up in the morning, you have to be like a lion. You have to be strong like a lion. And meaning that, get yourself out of bed. And then you say, Modeh, and then you wash your hands, and then you do this, and then you do that. He says, when you do that, your Yetzer Tov and your Yetzer Ra are going to be serving Hashem together at the same time. Ki mishpat tzedek hu acha'at alacha v'machloket kedusha. Because when it says mishpat tzedek, your righteous law, it is the verdict of the halacha in the disagreement that came about between the rabbis in a holy way. Ukshani lomed alacha, when I learn halacha, azai ani zocheh lavod otcha gam b'Yetzer Ra. Then I'm meriting to serve you with the Yetzer Ra, hakafuf liYetzer Tov, which is subjugated to the positive inclination. So another way of the Yetzer Ra serving the Yetzer Tov is you want to do something, and the Yetzer Ra says, no, not interested. So I don't have a problem getting up in the morning, and I don't have a problem getting to shul, bli ayin hara. I hope I never have that problem. It's not one. I have other problems, so that's not my problem. But if I did, like the few times that I did have a Yetzer Ra that says to me, don't you deserve a break one morning, just sleep in and rest? I'd say, no, I'm going to shul. There's the famous story of the Chafetz Chaim, who was one of the great rabbis in the previous generation from Poland and Rodin in Poland. And the Chafetz Chaim wrote the book about Lashon Hara, about not speaking slander about other people or yourself. And there's a story about him that one morning he wakes up and it's snowing outside. He's already an old man and he's not in good shape. And he hears his evil inclination say to him, you're an old man, stay in bed, you can daven at home. What do you have to go to shul for? And he gets up and he gets dressed and he starts walking in the snow. And the Yetzer Ra says, come on, this is not for you. You need to go back and rest. And then it's really hard. Like the snow is coming and it's hard to walk to shul. And as he's walking, the Yetzer Ra says, no, what are you doing? And he says to his Yetzer Ra, just like you had the energy to get up in the morning, and just like you had the energy to walk with me in the snow, so then I also have the energy to make it to shul. So that's serving Hashem with the Yetzer Ra, dragging the Yetzer Ra along with you. I heard somebody say recently, you wake up at 6, the Yetzer Ra wakes up at 4. He's always up before you. So he's always there, and you can learn from the Yetzer Ra because he's so good at being there on time and being very forceful in his arguments. So you can say, well, I'm learning from you. You got there on time and you're forceful in your arguments. I'm also going to get there on time and be forceful with my arguments. I remember one Chanukah, I wrote about it in my first book about, I'm pointing over here because that's where we sing on Chanukah. Back then, my kids weren't joining me. Nobody was joining me. I was just sitting out there playing the guitar by myself. And I had a very hard time financially, like very, very, very hard. And I got depressed from it. And I decided I was going to the kotel. Before that afternoon, davening mincha at the kotel. And then I came home. And I didn't want to even light the Chanukiah. And for sure, I didn't want to sit outside and play music. And I didn't. I said, no, that's it, fine. I'm giving into the Yetzer Ra. Go, do your best. And Noga was like, come on, you got to light. The kids are waiting for you to light. So I lit the Chanukiah. But then I said, I'm not going outside. No way, I'm not going to sit there and play music. I'm not in the mood for music. And then I realized what's happening. So I took my guitar and I kind of like really dragged my feet to get myself to sit down, and I started playing the guitar, and slowly people from the street started coming out. One guy came with the drum, one guy came with the violin, another one came with the flute. Before you know it, this whole orchestra is playing with me, and then my Yetzer Ra was gone at that point. I was totally flying, having this incredible experience, and I realized that I had literally dragged the Yetzer Ra with me to serve Hashem with joy. So that's an example of serving Hashem with the Yetzer Ra. Avan, we're just going to read a little bit more here and then we're stopping. Avan, gam shelomed poskim hamachnia to yetzara tachat yetzarato. But even when you learn halacha, and that subjugates the evil inclination to the good inclination, mikol makom, nonetheless, al hakushiyot she'en alehem terutz, regarding questions in which there aren't answers. For example, why does a baby die with a terrible disease? God forbid. We can't answer these questions. We can't understand. Like if there's anything like that, you can't explain it. Not in this world. Asor la'adam la'anyen behem. A person is not allowed to go deep into those questions. Rak lechazek et atzmo be'emunah, just to strengthen themselves with faith. Ki b'makom hazeh ein hasechel hagashmi yachol lavin, because these things a person's intellect is not capable of understanding. When a person has complete and total faith, that the person knows the answer for things in which there are answers. So, for example, Tisha B'Av, I gave the answer that even though we're here, the Beit HaMikdash is still not restored and there isn't peace in the world, so we have things to fast over. So the things that you know how to answer, you answer. And the things that you don't know how to answer, like the example I gave, God forbid, then you just say, I just trust that Hashem is running the world. Then it could be that through a person's eating, they bring about the unification of Hashem outside of this world and Hashem in this world. This unification is mentioned above. Because through eating, a person clarifies, elevates, takes out the food from the evil and the negative energy in the world that's attached to it. When a person eats food that's now been clarified, then a person creates this unification through their eating. So a simple thing, like you're eating matzah on Passover, you're creating a unification between Hashem and the Shekhinah, which is Hashem's presence in this world. And you could choose to not eat matzah, you could choose to eat regular bread, you could choose to eat non-kosher matzah, you could choose to eat it without a bracha. All of these things affect it. And this idea is that how do we elevate the food? We do it through faith. And this is what's connected to what it says in Tehillim, so re'eh emunah means it says that a person settles the land and they have to work on their faith. But re'eh is a shepherd. And then he says, ki mir'eh is a field that herds eat from. So when we say re'eh emunah, this is what he's trying to explain. He's giving this text here. He's saying, when it says that you're supposed to basically herd your faith, it means, in a sense, faith is connected to food. That is eating that comes about through faith in Hashem. Okay, so I have a very short story. Anyone has a question? Okay. And for my mother who listens to the podcast, this is the third story. I added a third story this week. And the reason is, first of all, it was just a good story. But there's a guy who's been coming to Ma'anot lately. He doesn't live in Jerusalem, but every weekend, every Shabbos, he comes to Jerusalem to be at Ma'anot. And he said to me how much he enjoys the podcast, and he's been listening to the podcast, and episode after episode after episode. There's almost 300 episodes. And if you include the videos on YouTube, there's already more than 300 episodes. And he said, sometimes you add a third story, and I really appreciate that. So I said, okay, this week I'll add a third story for him. So the story is, there was this girl in Balaklava, a suburb of Melbourne, Australia. I couldn't pronounce it, so in the story I just said a suburb of Melbourne, Australia. And she came to this Rabbi Chaim Gutnick, who is probably related to, what's his first name? I forgot. Gutnick, who is the Gutnick has this incredible story. And I wanted to meet him, by the way. So I davened that I would meet him. And one day he came to Ma'anot, and then he came to Bateran. So we had an interesting, we had an interesting discussion. He was a very wealthy guy. I don't know how wealthy he is now, but at one point he was a multi-billionaire. And the Rebbe told him he was going to be a billionaire. And the Rebbe drew a map for him. He has a book. He explained this. He has a picture of the book, or the picture of the map in the book. The Rebbe drew the mountains and the desert in Australia. He said, dig here and you'll find gold and diamonds. It took him a few years to find the exact spot. He dug there and he found gold and diamonds. He became a multi-billionaire, set up all these Chabad houses all around the world. And then, I don't know, things worked out, they didn't work out. He lost a lot of money, didn't lose money, whatever, I don't know. Crazy stories with him. So probably one of his sons, Chaim Gutnick. And this girl comes, she's 16 years old, and she says she wants to convert to Judaism. So he takes her straight to the Beit Din, and the Beit Din says no. Because that's what a Beit Din is supposed to do. It turns out it's from Masechet Yevomot, the tractate Yevomot, that it says that if a person comes to convert, you tell them no. Now, the person knows that they have to come back and ask again and again, but they gave a reason. They said she's 16 years old, it's too young to make such a big decision. This is a life and death decision, because you decide to be a Jew, and then you go back to not being a Jew, everything you do is a transgression. So you commit to being a Jew, you have to take it very seriously. And I know because of my time with Reb Shalom, there were many people that converted that came through their house. And there was this young woman who was, I think, 16 or 17, and the Beit Din wouldn't let her convert until she was 19. And so the Beit Din said no. Now this girl became depressed, she stopped eating, she wasn't sleeping well, and her parents were very concerned, and they called the rabbi, and they said, Rabbi, with all due respect, you're causing the suffering to our daughter, and she's suffering. So he goes and he tells the daughter, write a long letter to the Rebbe and explain everything, and I'll send it to the Rebbe. So she said they send it to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe doesn't send a response. And many weeks passed, and instead, this Reb Chaim, he wrote a letter to the Rebbe, totally unrelated to this girl, and in a postscript at the bottom, the Rebbe writes, what's with the Yiddish Mädel, the Jewish girl from the suburb next to Melbourne, Australia? Why did she write me this long letter? So the rabbi understood, if the Rebbe wrote the Yiddish Mädel, then this girl is Jewish. And he went to the parents and he said, are you Jewish? And after a long time, the mother admitted that she was a Holocaust survivor and she was hiding her Jewish identity so that her daughter wouldn't suffer what she suffered through. She wanted her daughter just not to grow up Jewish. So then, a while later, this Reb Chaim was in 770 in Crown Heights, and he had a meeting, private audience with the Rebbe, Yechidus, and he says to the Rebbe, amongst the Hasidim, we understand that the Rebbe has vision, can see from one end of the world to the other, in the past and the future. But Rebbe, I demand that you give me, sorry for being chutzpahdik, but I demand that you give me a logical explanation. How did you know this girl was Jewish? So he said, the letter that she wrote, only a Yiddish Mädel could write. Only a Jewish girl could write a letter like that. And that was his answer. And I've seen that, I've seen people that are converting or even converted, and you see how there's a total difference between like somebody who grew up Jewish and somebody who's converted, and so the Rebbe could tell right away. Okay, so next week, either with Mashiach or fasting and suffering, Baruch Hashem, looking forward to it, and God only knows what the next week is going to hold. We should hear good news, Bezrat Hashem. Everyone, remember to stay calm, and we'll meet again in 2 weeks, Bezrat Hashem. Shkoch.